How do you use data systems to address the needs of your advanced students?
Well, a little bit like what was just said, sometimes data points stand alone for a while before you even understand the problem they're presenting to you. And that's a little bit how an evolution of dealing with advanced students in our district came. I think there is a base concern that many of us have that in a standard-based model, you often teach to the middle. With emphasis on bringing your below basic students up to proficient, but sometimes our advanced students get lost in that model. And I think everyone going in gets a little nervous about that when you move to a standards-based model. So we coupled that with PVOS data that started to come back showing that that very group of our students were not growing. As you look at the growth data across the grade levels, we were getting less and less of our advanced students meeting their potential. And then the third piece of data that entered the puzzle was the gifted audit. Many of us, we were very guilty of it, don't maybe take our gifted compliance as seriously as some of our other compliance. But when they reviewed what we were doing, they challenged us that we had no universal screeners for gifted. So when we saw these three data points standing alone, we pulled them together and said, you know, it's time that we take a look at this. These children need to be taken care of. So we put into place a universal data screening system for our gifted students. It's different at each level, but we assure that we have at least 5 data points. We never go simply with the compliance data. You might have the compliance data and a PSSA score, but we also have a district universal screener as well as some diagnostics that we identify at each grade level. When we pulled the universal screener together, which took a lot of work, got all that data district-wide, we then took a look at the top random 10% of the students. And we had quite an eye-opening with the data. Many students that should be qualifying for gifted were not qualifying for gifted. Many students that were advanced were not being tested as potentially gifted, even below that 10%. So we started talking about, now here's the what are we going to do about this? How are we going to address this? When we dug deeper down into the student level to look at the students who were not being recommended by teachers for gifted, we found maybe some behavioral challenges. Maybe that little guy in the back of the room that is completely an itch, he's all over the room, isn't necessarily being picked up as a gifted student. So when we did that and we started to refer students into our new screening tool via data versus via simply a teacher recommendation, which also still stands in our model, we had an increase in the number of gifted students. To take that one step further, we were like, okay, now we know who our gifted kids are. How are we going to get our advanced kids to excel in this setting? Because we have in Shippensburg 3,400 students, over 50% free and reduced lunch. We have a lot of challenges on the plates of the teachers. And what we started to look at was our scheduling models. We were wholesale into differentiation and yet very challenged by its success. We didn't feel our teachers were differentiated. So we brought teachers into a room and started talking to them, and they started talking about they don't differentiate because we now have classrooms that have gifted students all the way down to learning support students. There's just too broad of a span for them to meet. So we went out. I have an extremely brilliant young assistant superintendent that is keeping me current. He found some amazing research on clustering. And I think, first of all, you have to get away from the fear-mongering. It's not tracking. We're not going back to the 70s. I started there. We're not going back there. But there is effective research out there, data, in meta-analysis format that shows that you can effectively cluster students, giving teachers less of a range while maintaining a heterogeneous learning atmosphere. We've started to implement that. We've had challenges along the way, but we've already seen tremendous growth in the district. One indicator being that when you give your teachers something that they can grab a hold of, teacher expectations are one of the primary indicators for student success. So this allowed the teachers to raise their expectations and go, I can do this. Differentiation used to look impossible. Now it doesn't look quite so impossible. If I get to know these kids, I can make a difference with them. And again, I stress, clustering is not putting all of your gifted students together, it is lessening the broadness of your stroke so that your teachers who are very invested in their students, by the way, have an opportunity for success. So all of that came together in a data model that we were expecting, presenting questions we never knew were out there, and our entire system has been impacted. And we're starting to see our advanced kids maintain that from 3rd grade all the way up through our system. So it's very exciting.
Wonderful. So it sounds like an excellent example of going beyond those test scores.
Exactly, digging deeper into that onion, yes.
Wonderful.